Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Oh, how long have I been waiting for this game? EA Star Wars was kind enough to let me and a bunch of other creators, press and whatnot play this game early, and as I'm recording this video, I finished the game pretty much 1 hour ago, which is why the review is a couple of hours late, because I had a very hectic week and I wanted to play through the entire game before I made this video for you all. My goal is to give you my full thoughts, feelings right after finishing the game, without spoilers, just to be clear, the good, the bad and such. So first of all, I did play this on the press build, which was before the Day Zero patch, which I actually think they released yesterday in preparation for the launch. So some of the issues I bring up later in the video might be fixed, but there are still some big concerns I will get to later in the video. All in all, the game took me 14 hours to finish, but I want to be clear that due to time limitations, I played very fast. It was pretty much not a speed run per se, but later in the game I actually had to lower the difficulty a little bit, simply because I didn't have time to do the boss fights like 5 or 10 times. And that also meant that I didn't do a lot of the side quests, and it still took me 14 hours to finish the game. So I would imagine that in a normal, calm playthrough where you actually do all the side quests, collectibles, it would take you probably 20 hours at least, and if you go for like 100%, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, I'm just guessing here, but 14 hours, that's the number I can give you for a very rushed playthrough of the game. So how does this pair up to Fallen Order? Well, I'm gonna leave the bad stuff to the end, like I mentioned earlier, but it's basically, like I said in my preview video, Fallen Order on steroids. It feels like they took 95% of the stuff from Fallen Order and did it better. The gameplay mechanics is probably the biggest upgrade in my opinion, as having 5 different stances to switch between was something that I appreciated a lot, and something I wanted to emphasize a lot on, as it didn't just feel like, oh, you always had to use one stance for one particular situation. Sure, some of them might be better than others, but they are so very different from each other in how the force attacks works, the combos, the skill tree, how fast or slow they are. So I had a lot of fun switching around between them. I actually ended up going for the cross-bladed lightsaber for most of my fights, to be honest. It's very slow and bulky, but I thought it was very satisfying when you got the timing correct and actually landed a blow with it, because it dealt a lot of damage. And later in the game you can upgrade to do like a mega throw or a charge deflection. There's simply a lot of cool things you can do with each of these stances. So I'm very excited to do a new playthrough where I will take it a bit more easy, collect more side skill points, which will then allow me to try out more of the combos, and then obviously eventually, as I'm done with the game, continue to progress and fill out the skill points to make a complete playthrough. Because since I played in the pre-press build, I'm gonna have to wipe that and start from the beginning if I play the game now, which is what you will be seeing on my live streams for the next couple of weeks. So what about the story then? Well, I'm gonna be very light on details because it's kind of hard to talk about it without spoiling. But I'm simply gonna say that I thought it was great. There was a compelling story, good characters, and something that I really appreciated and that I, again, can't say much about is that there's a lot of surprise appearances, twists and turns that I definitely did not expect, and there was a couple of times that I went like, holy shit, I did not expect that. And on top of that, since the playthrough was quite long, despite doing no side quests, it was probably at multiple occasions where I thought, oh, the game is over now, and then they throw you into something completely new. The game did have a very satisfying ending, but it was definitely multiple times throughout my playthrough where I thought this could be the end, although it would be a little bit disappointing if it ends this early. So that's, for me, just a positive feeling when the game continues to grow. In terms of just movement around, I appreciate that they added more to what we had in the previous game, like being able to dash in the air, the grappling hook, using BD1 more as a tool to progress in the story. So they really improved upon all the puzzles from the previous game, which was something I was a little bit worried about, that it was either just gonna be the same or they were gonna like go back to square one and remove stuff and add new ones. But they kind of just grew the puzzles from the previous game. And I'm curious if any of you guys will make that connection, but for a lot of puzzle stuff, I almost got a little bit of Portal 2 feeling when you were spraying this goo with BD1, or some of these room structure. It really reminded me of Portal 2, which is one of my favorite games actually. Like I mentioned, I didn't do too much side stuff, but I appreciated that there was a lot of side stuff that gave you valuable stuff, like I beat the Rancor here, which gave me a perk, which does add to your gameplay, or I actually managed to finish this Force Fracture, which gave me a skill point. So doing these little side quests will reward you with something useful. I mean, sometimes the cosmetics alone are really good, but they will also reward you gameplay stuff, so it's not just for fun, but it will actually help you out. And there's also a bunch of bounty hunting you can do, and when you get these bounty pucks, you can use them for some pretty cool rewards at the shop, like some real serious upgrades to your blaster pistol, although I didn't have time to try that out unfortunately. That is just another example of side stuff that will affect the way you play the game. The only gameplay stuff that maybe didn't really live up to its hype was when you're tag teaming with either Marin or Bode. Those sections were pretty few and you didn't really do much. Marin was great fighting side by side and you could like freeze the enemies in the ground, but for how much they talked about it and showed it in the trailers, maybe that didn't really live up to the hype. But other than that, pretty much all the gameplay stuff was a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. And I've got to say that when it comes to boss fights, which is again something that's pretty hard for me to talk details about without spoiling, the boss fights were really good. They had a clear progression throughout the game with new mechanics, new attacks you had to avoid, and like in Fallen Order, there's also different phases with each boss where they usually throw more powerful stuff at you the lesser health they have, something that I think is quite fun. But as you probably know, obviously you will fight Ravis. That's not really a spoiler since we've even seen that in the trailers, and fighting someone like him is different than, for instance, a Force Wielder. So all in all, gameplay, solid 9 out of 10 I would say. So what about the bad stuff then? The big issue for me that at some points got me pissed off, to be honest, is the performance on PC. It was absolutely horrible. Like I would say the average FPS for me when playing this game was 30 to 40, which was like playable. But when you went to some open world sections, or when you go through a door and load in new stuff, or when you're using the holo table on the Mantis, you could drop down to like below 10 FPS, which is just not acceptable. I'm playing on a 2080 Ti and an i7 9700K CPU, so it's definitely not the highest of high end, but it's way over the recommendation. And having read some other reviews now before I recorded this one, this seems to be a major issue with the game. I don't know how much of this they fixed with the Day Zero patch, but I doubt they've been able to do that much of a difference. And on top of that, cutscenes were extremely laggy, glitching out like crazy, and the audio was usually double, delayed, or didn't work at all. And this really takes away from the storytelling in a major way. The cutscenes, I wouldn't be surprised if they fixed with the Day Zero patch, so I gotta mention that, but the way I experienced it, it was honestly painful. It ruined the story at some points with that kind of lag and issues. So if you're on the fence of buying the game, wait a little bit, see when they fix it, and then play it. You will have a much better experience than having all the issues that I had when it comes to the actual performance. So if anything drags down the final score for me, it's the cutscenes, it's the FPS drops, because those are not okay. And I don't know how that is on consoles, hard to say, but I'm sure there's plenty of reviews out there on different platforms. And obviously, wait until Friday when the game is officially out and see what people think about the Day Zero patch. Who knows, maybe most of this stuff is fixed, because right now it is definitely the biggest issue by far. It's not with the gameplay, not with the story, not with the length, just purely performance. But that's all I've got to say in my review, as I don't want to drag it on for too long. I really hope you enjoyed it and hearing my thoughts. And if you have any further questions or whatnot, please let me know in the comments below and I'll answer them as much as I can, spoiler free. And I will also start a new playthrough live stream in this game. Not really sure when I will have time, but maybe this weekend. And then for the next couple of weeks, I will take it calmly, slowly, go through the story the way you're supposed to, do all the side stuff, and enjoy it with all of you guys. And I'm also gonna have plenty of clips up on my second channel talking about smaller details in the game too. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.
What?